Smooth on the map, never slip. What you gonna do when you out? Who you with? You ain't really like that. Don't jig, don't jig. Really on the move on the map, never slip. Put your hands to your lip. Don't jig, don't jig.
We now start to enter the business end of season 28 of Apex this Tuesday's Porsche Cup as we hit the streets of St. Petersburg. Hello everybody, welcome in and thank you for joining us for what is going to be week 9 out of 12 here at this 1.8 mile circuit. 14 corners, runs clockwise, 5 to the left, 9 to the right, and with any domestic or international street circuit, there are barriers very close to the racing line. More to the point, you join myself, Alex Goldschmidt, and Steve Kernick, once again your commentary team. Steve also doing the hard work behind the scenes to provide you the coverage of this race series in glorious sound and vision. Let's remind you of where we've been and where we're going to on the calendar. We started back on June 16th at the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit, then headed to VIR before heading to the World Centre of Racing on June 30th. Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta kick-started July, followed by Brands Hatch, Watkins Glen and Sebring. And just last week we were by the North Sea coast at Circuit Zandvoort. More to the point, after St. Petersburg, next week on August the 18th, Imola. August 25th, Monza, and September the 1st, the final round of the series, Spa-Francorchamps. 3 European classic tracks to see who is going to be top of the pops, king of the hill, if you will. But more to the point, let's take you through the race format. Currently underway with a 10-minute qualifying session where drivers have 4 laps around this 1.8 mile circuit to put their best foot forward. It's a 45-minute race with 45% fuel limitation. 12 incident points. If you hit them first of all, that'll be your first trip through the drive-through penalty lane, and then a further 12 after that. 1 fast repair at the disposal of the drivers, and the cars we're running in is the new and current generation 992.2 Cup Car. 4-litre flat 6, 520 brake horsepower, rear-wheel drive with ABS and traction control. Let's quickly update you with the points coming into this 9th week of the series. Michael Brock, the defending Going Pros champion, has a 26-point lead over Mark Miller, with Colin Winslow rounding out the top 3, covered by 42 points. Matt Mosby, Kevin Zhu, Spencer Baudouin, Derek Tyndall, Oz Exelu, Ryan Ryder, and our learned commentary friend from Maximum Effort Motorsports, Brian Zinn, rounds out the top 10. Next up, we go to mid-pack Larry's, and it's Ken Ingersoll who is leading the way by just 10 points ahead of Sean Teeter, who was successful last week at Zandvoort. Keegan Gehrig has been Mr. Consistency and has kept himself in the top 3 so far. Bad Dog Racing's Kent Kruger, Jack Stadola in the Eddie Jordan tribute band livery is currently running P5. Chris Lown, John Monsalve, Corey Mitchell, Justin Aitchison and Kenton Bandy bring up the rest of the top 10 in the series. But let's head trackside here at St. Petersburg. And every single season at the beginning of the NTT IndyCar Series, it's always whether Helio Castroneves might become Spider-Man again if he decides to climb the fencing. But at the moment, DJ Alessandrini back again for a one-off appearance. He does that multiple times every single season. He is currently quickest, but not by much, because the number 20 of Paul Darling has gone just 1/100th slower. Colin Winslow rounds out a top 3 that is covered by just 2 tenths, then a further 0.19 back. 4 tenths cover the top 4 overall, because the current reigning defending champion and the points leader in the Going Pros, the number 421 of Michael Brock, rounds out the top 4. Michael Cummings in the number 15 is the quickest mid-pack Larry's car, as we see Joe Mayer making his way through turns 2 and 3 on the run down First Street, heading into the 90-degree right-hander here at turn 4 before it's then through into 5. getting down to the final few seconds here in qualifying. Sean Teeter, second place at the moment in the mid-pack Larry's, P8 overall, ahead of Jack Stadola, who rounds out the top three. Ken Ingersoll currently 13th in the qualifying at the moment, ahead of Keegan Gehrig, who rounds out the top 5 in the class. But let's welcome him in from both my side and your side, Steve, in the UK and South Africa. Good morning.
Good morning, and what a track to be at. I was watching the drivers in practice, going and giving it their absolute all, and this circuit is a hell of a lot of fun, especially in the Porsche Cup cars. Something I can highly recommend, that's for certain.
Yep, and also, if you are watching along on the Race and Nexus YouTube channel, please don't forget, if you haven't already, hit that like, share and subscribe button. Live timing is linked in the chat and pinned, as the checkered is out for qualifying. So, the anticipation can be cut like a hot knife through cold butter. As we go now to race time, it's your starting grid in terms of the overall side of things. DJ Alessandrini will start from pole position ahead of Paul Darling alongside on the front row. Colin Winslow and Michael Brock will round out row 2. Then it is Michael Cummings and Derek Tyndall that will round out the third row overall on the grid. Mark Miller will be joined by Sean Teeter on row 4, with Jack Stadola being behind. Well, Jack Stadola finding himself a little bit further back down the order, because Mark Miller is joined by Sean Teeter on row 4. Jack Stadola on the inside of Tony Wallace, who rounds out the top 10. Spencer Baudoin and Kevin Zhu round out row 6. Then it's Ken Ingersoll and Keegan Gehrig who round out row 7. John Monsalve and Brian Zinn round out row 8 overall, with Joe Mayer and Kenton Bandy rounding out the top 9 rows. Completing the top 20 overall will be Matt Mosby and Benson Tai, the man from Hong Kong. Christopher Lau, Matt Bond, Paul Bailey, Kent Kruger, Conor Menard, Tina Renee and Mike Bond round out the 26 strong grid. Some drivers did not set a lap time in qualifying. Obviously, with the long run down out of turn 14 into turn 1 is going to be the biggest opportunity for overtaking here at this 1.8 mile circuit, first established back in the mid 1980s. As there we see some of the cars starting to ready up. Paul Darling now gets onto the grid, waiting for DJ Alessandrini to make his presence known. Due to have 27 cars start this race, but not everybody might get on there. But it will be the case of a standing start here at St. Petersburg, because very shortly the flat 6 Boxer engines will roar into life and will be hitting red lines at around about the 8,200 RPM mark. These cars are the current generation that are used in, as we've gone green here at St. Pete. A lot of wheel spin, but DJ Alessandrini gets the whole shot as Barney in the background waving the green flag as we head into turn 1. Alessandrini leads. Darling in P2, but looks like someone's had a bit of a drama. And that is going to be the likes of Mark Miller, who's tumbled all the way down to the bottom end of the order, along with Christopher Laum. Kent Kruger, Tina Renee, Conor Menard and Mike Bond did not make it to the grid. Matt Mosby might have also been in there, but Spencer Baudoin has already received the mechanical black flag. Started P11, has tumbled all the way down to 22nd. Matt Mosby has effectively been disqualified from the session for some apparent reason. However, Mark Miller was exit stage left. It looks like he got a bit of a punt going into turn 1, Steve, and turns 1 to 3 heading down onto First Street is not exactly the place where you want to try and make an overtake, especially with how wide these Porsche 992.2 Cup cars are.
And especially you add cold tires and cold brakes as well. You're just coming off the start. It's definitely not the easiest to go and try and think about it, but you've got to say they've tried their luck, and we're going to see if we can pull up what happened to Spencer at the start of the race, and this is what happened to him. Stuck piggy in the middle, and unfortunately looks like it all went wrong.
Well, yeah, he got tagged, then gets broadsided on the front end of the car. Mark Miller I'm not too sure exactly what happened to him, but it looked like he might have just had a little bit of contact on the right rear wheel arch. So Spencer Benoit is in. Matt Mosby has been excluded from the session, so no points it seems for the number 23 car. But DJ Alessandrini already starting to build an initial gap, but here at St. Pete, if we were at a wider expanse of circuit like, say, Imola or Monza this week, Steve, it would be a very different proposition altogether, because they've just come out of turn 5 and now heading into turn 8. Well, they're heading down into what looks to be the long, yeah, there we go, down the long start-finish stretch, heading down into turn 1. You've got to be very much picture perfect here at St. Pete as we go on to lap 3. It is more the case of DJ Alessandrini. We know he's an alien. He's got a 76.41 iRacing, and every time he comes here, he sticks it on pole, he runs away, and everybody else has to eat his dust, so to speak. But that first complex, turns 1 to 3, you try and dive somewhere in the, you know, either in the middle or in the inside, you find yourself in a little bit of a hurt locker situation, I think.
It's risky moves all the way through, and another little factor that's been coming to mind is the pits. Now, we do know these cars will need to eventually start looking at the pit lane, and not many drivers have been practicing it. It is a bit of an awkward one to get into, as it's coming out of the final corner, and you have to keep incredibly tight to the right to dive into the pit lane, but it is also very close for your pit limiter, so you have to be very precise if you want to get in with a bit of pace, and also not to lose out too much time, or you can land up going too fast in the pits. We've seen a number of drivers having that same problem in practice when they tried getting out of the pit lane, not finding where you can come off the button, but also trying to get in pit lane without smacking the wall.
Yeah, and the big thing is that with regards to the actual exit for the pits, is you're going to be coming straight onto the racing line at turn 2. So you've got to have your eyeballs on stalks, as we see Derek Tyndall, who's on 1 spot. Biggest move at the moment in both respective categories. Brian's in up to 11th overall, up 5 positions. Benson Tai, the man from Hong Kong, started 20th, now runs P14 overall, but that is P6 in the mid-pack Larrys. He's going chasing after John Monsalve in the yellow submarine just up ahead in the 505, which is for P5 in the class. A lot of 5s there, but still at least there's only one corner that's going to be called turn 5. Someone nearly glances the wall behind Benson Tai, and that looks to be possibly, that's not Keegan Gehrig, that is going to be Joe Mayer in the 000, as Paul Darling now starting to close that gap. And bearing in mind the last lap around for DJ Alessandrini, who had absolutely no assist whatsoever, 1:12.647, Paul Darling 1:12.318, and the number 20 is starting to reel in Alessandrini, hook, line and sinker, as we've already eclipsed 5 minutes of this 45 so far. We ride on board with the number 20. He's getting very close to the walls. You've got to be picture perfect. You've got to nigh on scrape the walls with the bodywork to maybe get a little bit of paint scratching. But you can see here, Paul Darling absolutely flying at the minute and is putting DJ Alessandrini under significant duress.
It's turning into an epic battle of proportions, but now DJ used to be comfortable running ahead as a coach, but now finds himself under a little bit of pressure. Paul is not getting off that back bumper. He's ensuring he's going to stay as close as possible, as long as possible, just to ensure that DJ will have to look in the mirrors. And this is always a tricky situation, because you can land up getting tunnel vision, as we've seen drivers beforehand land up getting a little close, and we nearly had it there, as Paul, sick and tired of hanging that second place spot, taking the risks to see if he can launch the car forward, but got to be so careful not to send it too hard into the corners, landing up with both drivers finding the wheel.
Yep, DJ Alessandrini having the opportunity of a clear track in front of him. Spencer Baudoin, I think, has called it time. So the front end of that 010 Golf liveried car has seen better days. So the man from Canada is out of the race. Matt Mosby excluded from the session. Spencer Baudoin now out of the race, as here we see a little bit of a battle. This is for P9, P10 and P11. That is Brian Zhu trying to look at the inside of, well, it's Brian's in looking to get through on Kevin Zhu, the man from St Kitts and Nevis, whereas Jack Stadola, who runs P3 in the mid-pack Larry's, currently sits at this moment in the 9th spot, rounds out the top 3 in the class. And another look by Brian Zinn, and Brian has said that Maximum Effort Motorsports is going to have a rebrand. Of course, him and Derek Tyndall running 5th and 10th respectively for the Has High Racing outfit. But you can just see that it is very, very minimal in terms of the passing opportunities. Track temp 99 degrees Fahrenheit, so we're bordering on about 40 degrees centigrade. That's going to hurt the tyres, because one of the things about this circuit here, Steve, it's very much a point and squirt circuit, and you've got to get on that power as early as you dare before the back end starts stepping out and one wheel ends up clattering into the barriers.
That's it. As you pointed out, the tyres starting to have a big fall off. Drivers that are pushing harder and harder at the moment are going to start to feel it quicker than the other, as they trying to get that rear to just rotate enough through these corners. You're at low pace through a lot of the tight sections, and you've got to ensure that you can get it revved up, send it through to get the rear to step out on you. Unfortunately, that also damages the rear tyres, and you will start to pick up that the rear end is not going to play well with you. You're going to have to try and find a little bit of time out on the circuit, also preserving the tyres, trying to get rid of all the heat cycles that they're going to have to go through. But I'm also noticing a lot of these drivers are smacking the curbs as hard as they can, trying to maximize the drive out of it. And we've seen in the past in this championship, you go a little too quick over the curbs, you get a little airborne, and sometimes you come down a lot harder than you think.
Yeah, you end up on your backside with a bit of a bump and a sore coccyx. There's a direct correlation to that. But Derek Tyndall keeping a watching brief on the driver behind him, and that is mid-pack Larry's leader, Michael Cummins, in the number 15 car. So this is the battle for P5 overall, and nice to see Derek having a bit of a sort of a summary kind of livery on that car. Meantime, DJ Alessandrini starting to trade. Fastest laps with Paul Darling. Alessandrini with a 1 minute 12.227. Paul Darling that time around was a 1 minute 12.480, and Alessandrini has just taken back from Paul Darling the fastest lap of the race so far in this encounter. And because the thing is, this is the smallest circuit on our entire calendar, it makes Brands Hatch Grand Prix feel like an eternal, ongoing, non-stop, not knowing where it ends, park that people always frequent. But again, it is just the case of Alessandrini cannot make a single mistake possible. We know that every driver, Steve, is not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, be it full metal jacket racing in the real life space or here on the iRacing circuit.
That is well said, and well, they've also got to think about they're getting quicker and quicker out on the track, but they will start to catch the back end of the field. And that's also going to play a part, because you pointed out earlier, it's a difficult circuit to go and clear past. It's a difficult circuit to try and find some free air. Add some back markers while you're getting into a fight, it's just going to turn life on its head quite quickly. And everyone having to think, right, what do we need to do to move forward without losing too much time? And for those that are on the blue flags, you really don't want to give up your racing line, because there isn't enough room out on the circuit to try and bring it back from the brink. And so far, that's going to be Michael Brock's big wish for this race. He wants to see both drivers in front run into a little bit of hassle so he can get back into the fight and try draw them in a little bit closer.
Yeah, Michael Brock consistently running in the low 1 minute 12.4s, but he is starting to lose time to Paul Darling in the number 20 car. The gap is around about a second between P2 and P3 as the leaders come out of turn number 14 and down the long stretch. 10 laps in the books. We've just completed just over 12 and a quarter minutes, and it's going to be interesting to see when drivers decide to make their pit stops. Meantime, Benson Ty battling away for position, and that'll be with gearing, but Benson Ty has just pulled into the pit lane. Maybe he's decided, I do not want to be stuck either in front of people where I'm at a disadvantage. So let's go on an out-of-the-box thinking when it comes to the 3000 IQ strats. And obviously Benson Ty is going to be dropping down the order. Christopher Lowe and Paul Bailey are rounding everything out. Benson Ty 9.4 seconds on pit road as a little scrape of the wall by the number 78, the Dr. Pepper liveried car of Tony Wallace, who's got Brian Zinn trying to chase him down for what is effectively that position. Well, Brian Zinn is actually right with Jack Stadola. Here we see Derek Tyndall again. He's got a lot of company on his back bumper. Well, one in particular, Michael Cummins in the number 15, who is trying to stretch away that advantage between himself and Sean Teeter. Because of the fact behind Tony Wallace, you're going to be, well, Tony Wallace is quite a way back, but between Winslow and Tyndall, the gap is 3 seconds. From Tyndall down to Wallace, you are looking at about 3.5 seconds. So it is a case of hitting your marks. Pit stops are going to be so crucial. That is one of the main keys of the race, is managing the tyres, managing the fuel, making sure you're not overdriving the vehicle or smacking the curbs a little bit too high, whereby either hits the right or the left side of the vehicle in the air. And when you're trying to accelerate, having walloped those sausage curbs, you've got to like literally wait a second or a second and a half to just time it well for that power to be delivered on the brakes. But nevertheless, coming up to the 30 minutes mark, still to go. Sean Teeter giving the driver in front, which is Tony Wallace in the Dr. Pepper car. That is the battle for P7 overall. And Tony Wallace is in P7 overall, but more to the point, he is 6th in class. Sean Teeter is right on his rear wing as they come down the start-finish straight. Seeing top speeds as, oh, well, Teeter decided, I'm going to go for that move. And unfortunately, the thought process was there. The initial delivery, like someone trying to bowl the ball toss towards a set of cricket stumps, and the guy in front of the wickets smacks it to silly mid-on and hits a 6 across the boundary. But Teeter, again, we have seen sometimes where he's had some flashes of brilliance, but he's looking to stick his nose up the inside. That was very brave there from Sean Teeter, but that is now going to put on his rear bumper Jack Stadola. And along with that, there is Brian Zinn at the end of this quartet of cars, heading into the next left-hander. And oh, dearie me, Sean Teeter very close to scraping the right rear fender on the outside wall, going through the left, as Paul Darling has taken a big chunk of time out of DJ Alessandrini, and the lead gap is just shy of 1.2 seconds. More to the point, we're now on lap number 14. I did say, Steve, that these laps would go past very, very quickly. It's a bit like trying to count sheep to set yourself off to sleep.
That's certainly the case. And we're starting to see the drivers losing the rear ends a little bit on these cars. They've been catching the walls just by luck, but they've also been catching the slides as they get on the power a little bit early. It's all starting to look a little bit slippery out there. We always talk about you've got to warm up the tires. Well, now it's starting to overheat. You're starting to get to a phase where it's almost like gun. You've got that stick, but you've also got a little bit of slide if you're not careful. And I know it's a bit of a weird way of saying it, but it's the only way I can think to describe it. You just have that grip until it doesn't. It starts to fall off a cliff, and you battle to find that fine line of where you're able to push and where is it going too far. And sometimes it doesn't really help when you start trying to slam these cars down the gears to use that engine braking to help you. Otherwise, you do land up going a little too far into the braking zone, and an unplanned visit towards the car door, or an unplanned visit to visit the coastline not too far away.
Maybe making a little excursion by going through a concrete barrier or two, but here comes a move, and that is going to be very neatly orchestrated. So Derek Tyndall finds himself behind Michael Cummins, who is currently sitting P5 in the class, well, P5 overall, but P1 in the mid-pack Larrys. So there is still plenty of this race to go. 18 minutes have elapsed. We have got 27 on the timer left to go. We're probably going to see some other pit stops maybe happening, I would say, within the next 12 to 15 minutes. But that can also depend on whether we might have some dark cloud cover over this particular track here on the streets of St. Pete. Well, it looks very much like South African blue sky up above. A few spottings, a few a little bit of a smorgasbord of white and dark grey cloud cover up ahead. As here we go again to the inside. This is Sean Teeter trying to get through, and the job has just been expedited. So a good move there by that driver, but he's not getting away with it quite yet, let's say.
Teeter not having an easy time, as you could see Tony Wallace in the Dr. Pepper car trying to hunt him down every which way possible. Jack Stradola is now on a hot charge to see if he can get round Tony Wallace as quick as possible, because he does not want to lose track of that second place. And the way the drivers are going, it's getting more and more aggressive out there.
Yeah, that could be further from the truth on that statement you just made. But so far, at the minute, we've had several drivers that did not start. Kent Kruger, Tina Renee, Conor Menard, and Mike Bond. Matt Mosby out due to exclusion after the start phase. Didn't even get to cover a 1/10 of a second in this race. So it's going to be a real shame for Ratchet. But nevertheless, as a good Australian racing driver friend of mine who I'm going to visit this coming Thursday goes, just sit there and read and tell me the story. And, well, there's so much that we can pick apart on this season so far, Steve, and it never gets tiresome, it never gets old. And when we have still 21 of the bikes that, well, or 21 of the crew that are in the convoy heading off. Of course, coming up this weekend, a good friend of mine will be racing over stateside Karlstadt, who's been running with Kelly Moss Racing, the Porsche North America Sprint Challenge North America, powered by Yokohama. And that is a big moment there, Tony Wallace, and that is coming out of turn 13. Back end steps out, and he ends up painting the wall with the livery on his nose, and he's just lost it. He lost it on his own, and that is the key point. He lost control of the vehicle at one of the most crucial points you need to negotiate through that course. Meantime, Jack Stadola currently sitting P3 in the race as it stands. This could be the opportunity that that particular driver does not have to call on Constantine, who will probably say, I have exercised the demons. Well, at the moment, the demons are out on the track as we speak. But still, the good thing is, the Porsche Owners Club, they do a fantastic job on helping with regards to organising the stream. I know my good partner in crime, Mr. Joe Peake, has also had some dealings with people in general, but it's possibly not of what you might technically understand or even think you know what it's cost, because if someone's got it for you, the first thing you don't ask is, oh, how much is this? How much is this? How much is this? You get what I'm saying at Sagar, that it's just a case of we're all now glued either to our sofas or other items that need the utmost discretion and also thought on what might occur. But nevertheless, this is where one of the drivers starts pulling along some good old back marker traffic. As I said to as I said to Starlord before we went racing for the first event of this third season, I could look that there was a stoic kind of, let's put it this way, I'm trying to think of the word, but I've lost my chain of thought. So yeah, so apologies for the brain freeze, but I'll try and concentrate on racing as much as we can. We are past the halfway point, but we'll give you a top 5 rundown of the respective classes, and it is DJ Alessandrini in the 333 that leads the Going Pros on lap number 20 of the race, ahead of Paul Darling by just over half a second. Michael Brock rounds out the top 3, Colin Winslow in 4th, and Derek Tyndall rounds out the top 6 but rounds out the top 5 in the Going Pros. Steve, how are things looking in the mid-pack Larrys as things stand?
Well, Michael Cummings is holding on to first place in the class, but is 5th overall. He's managed to open up a little bit of room to Sean Teeter, who has broken away from this very pack. Jack Stodola holds on to 3rd place in the mid-pack Larrys, with Kenneth Ingersoll holding on to 4th. 5th is Keegan Garrick, who's actually feeling quite confident coming into this race, and holding a top 5 is most certainly what he wants to do. But I'm just watching Jack Stodola. He is absolutely hunting for every opportunity to get past Brian Zinn. And every time he tries to go and take a wider line, it's just going straight in for Kevin to go through and see if he can try and make a solid pass as well. So far, Mid-Pack Larry's is getting into a fight with our Going Pros. And so far, the circuit is favouring no one. At the moment, just keeping an eye on the drivers, even Mark Miller, who pitted a little bit earlier, now finds himself right onto the back of Benson Tai. These two cars are the only two that have pitted, that every other car ahead of them hasn't gone into the pits. They still trying to figure out what they can do, as Paul Bailey is going on by. It's good to see that he's still in the race, still trying to see it through to the very end. And this is a circuit that, I've got to say, if you want to make it work for the championship, you really want to see the green and the checkered to maximize the points.
Yeah, 2 other drivers that have pitted in the mid-pack Larrys. Matt Bond pitted on lap 19 for 9.12 seconds. And Benson Tai, well, he pitted 10 laps ago, so Benson Tai with 9.4 seconds stationary in pit lane. Kevin Zhu, the first of the main protagonists in the Going Pros, trundles down pit lane at the slow speed. There's Paul Darling still trying to do what he can, but he has just lost a big amount of time to DJ Alessandrini. Here's the Racer Nexus replay, and it's going to be a potential coming down, looks into First Street. It's going to, he just completely misses the braking zone and goes into the runoff area. Manages to lock up the front, so you see the 11s is on the tarmac. But now as we hit 18.5 minutes to go, the big question is, Steve, is how long do we see maybe some of our biggest protagonists, and I'm looking at Michael Brock here, who's got the opportunity to undercut Alessandrini, and also Paul Darling, who's just set the fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 12.065. Michael Brock has been dominant in terms of victory here in season 28, but you come to a track like St. Pete and something changes. There is an air of dynamic change afoot, especially when everyone sees that, oh, 333 is back again.
There's always that little bit of concern, but for others, they take it up as a challenge. Paul Darling has been flat on the back of DJ until he landed up with a bit of a problem. But I've also just seen Jack Stradolo, John Winslav and Joseph Mia have pulled into the pits. They've got themselves sorted out, and Kevin has exited out in 13th position overall. So while our leaders are fighting to get round some of the back markers, they will get to see these drivers in and out the pits. And this is going to be a dead wonder for them of who's going to pit first, who's going to pull the trigger to really make it work. And at the moment, well, the concern should be coming in because Michael Cummings, who's gone in and out of the pits, he's up into 11th. And that is a telltale of where you need to keep an eye out for. That is a marker on the relative you want to ensure. And with Tony Wallace still trying to drive around the battered and beaten Dr. Pepper car, well, he's doing everything he can to try and help himself in the points, but also to try and keep some sort of momentum that was lost on the track.
Right, Keegan Gehrig has just pitted from the mid-pack Larry's, which has now promoted Michael Cummings back up to P3. Kenton Bandy yet to come in, has just completed his 23rd lap and now runs in P11 in the class, P11 overall, P4 in class, and is 3.6 seconds behind Michael Cummings, who took pole position in the mid-pack Larry's, as DJ Alessandrini cannot hold on any further. Paul Darling is going to go on for at least another lap, and there is Michael Brock. He is staying out. He's not the only one to do so. So DJ Alessandrini, what wizard's trick can he play apart from Wingardium Leviosa, in the words of Harry Potter? And let's see if he does not have to worry about what Slytherin is going to happen on the track later on. Derek Tyndall now pits in the number 42 car. So the pit stops are imminent. Sean Teeter now takes the lead of the mid-pack Larry's on lap number 24, as Ken Ingersoll is now in pit road. Kenton Bandy and Christopher Laum are the two drivers that have yet to pit. Well, Sean Teeter, Kenton Bandy and Christopher Laum have yet to pit. Michael Cummings, however, is going to cycle through these pit stops. So we've just got 15 minutes to go to the race lead. Darling, Brock, Winslow, Zinn and Wallace in the going pros. That is first, second. Well, Darling has now come in. Thank you, Darling. In the words of the great Stephen Fry, Michael Brock stays out for another lap. And he's not the only one, because Colin Winslow is going to be following in his footsteps. And this is the first time that Michael Brock has led at least part of a lap on this race. DJ Alessandrini at this moment very shortly will come across the line. He's going to get the undercut done on Paul Darling, who is a second quicker on his pit stop. And Darling has just come out. There he is. Absolutely flat chat, because you can you can disengage the pit lane speed limiter a lot earlier in the pit lane here at St. Pete, and he was literally a nose ahead, let's say. But Paul Darling rejoins in P3, but it's now dependent on when Michael Brock and Colin Winslow do decide to pit. Just over 13.5 minutes on the counter remains. And what's more, Paul Darling gets the undercut on DJ Alessandrini, who was a second slower on his marks, and maybe picking up an additional couple of litres worth of fuel just to have that little bit of an offset if the man in front of him starts lifting and coasting. And with lap times last time around was a 1:21.185. That also included the fact that Paul Darling was across the stripe anyway. And he is now on a, well, that was a 1:26.2 from him, a 1:13.024 for DJ Alessandrini. Winslow mid 1:13.4, but Michael Brock has now pulled an advantage of over 3 seconds from the 7:04 behind them. Sean Tita has now come in, and there's a mistake from DJ Alessandrini. That is not going to help his charge back to the front of the field, because he already knows that Paul Darling would have pitted. He'll also know that Colin Winslow and Michael Brock might get a little bit of a Monopoly style get out of jail free card, and then at least he can then go and pass go and collect $200 to see how many trains he's got ready to depart from Marylebone Station.
Yeah, that is going to be one to worry about. Another one to worry about is Michael Cummings, who is finding himself in the hot seat at the moment. Sean Tita right on the back of him as they fight out for first and second in the mid-pack Larrys, and at the moment catching the wall on the way through. Mistakes starting to be had, and these drivers pushing as hard as they can. Also, yellow flags came out for John Munslav, who had a little bit of a problem earlier on. So the yellow Porsche, unfortunately, finding itself into, well, going submarine. Went in deep and unfortunately found itself going a little too far and having to find the reverse gear to get himself back out on track. So a little bit of a problem kicking in and out-braking themselves, and these are just little factors that the drivers are starting to experience more and more as our leaders now continue on their charge. Michael Cummings and Sean Tita trying to clear past the back markers as quick as possible. And I've got to give it up to the likes of Keaton Bandy, who's minding out of the way. He's keeping himself out of trouble and also doing it in the best way possible. Down the straight, hang to the right-hand side, let everyone take the left, and you continue on the drive. Circulating at the moment. But Michael Brock into the pits, Colin Winslow into the pits, and here comes the fight. And you can see the 505 of John Munslav, who's managing to hold up Paul Darling just a little bit through the corner. That's just going to give them a split second more of relief in the pits before they get going. But Paul managing to clear through. But I don't think DJ is going to have that luck heading into the next sequence of corners.
Completely agree, as Michael Brock just completes his stationary time getting the fuel-only service. See there, John Monsal's car, a shadow of its former self. The yellow submarine has the coolant radiators and the intercooler exposed, where the front panel, the front bumper would be, and he will be having time with a big amount of understeer, because that car will be handling like a pig, no matter whether you turn it left, whether you turn it right. 10 minutes out of the 45 to go here on the streets of St. Pete, as DJ Alessandrini, well, he's going to get through on John Mansell, who scrapes the paintwork on the right side fenders, keeps out of harm's way. But Alessandrini is trying to chase down Paul Darling in the dying stages of this race. 9.5 minutes to go. And Steve, if you were a betting man, who would be your pick for winning both classes here tonight on the streets of St. Pete?
Oh boy, you're going to put me in the hot seat for this one. Well, I have to say, I'm leaning on Paul Darling to go and usurp DJ right at the line. Michael Brock, unfortunately, a little too far back. But between our mid-pack Larry's fight at the moment, Michael Cummings is starting to make mistakes. Little by little, that rear end isn't looking as good as it once was. So I do think Sean Tita might be able to just put his nose forward and see if he can get that launch on by. But, and this is the big one, if Kevin doesn't get involved in the fight as well. He's right behind the pack, and oh, Brian finds himself slotting right in. And, well, bang goes that one, because Sean Tita bang into the wall. Got a fright from Brian Zinn coming through, and Wallace gets the black flag.
Yeah, that's Tony Wallace in the number 78, so that'll be points now hit. So a very long trundle of shame down the pit lane. It's a real shame for him, but Brian's in, trying to get the elbows stuck out a little bit in the 82 Has-Hire racing car as they come flying down the circuit here on the streets of St. Pete. It is a close quarter and it's hard fought. You've got to get your elbows out. We have 8 minutes to go. We're currently courtesy of Paul Darling in the number 20 car. An initial lead over DJ Alessandrini following on from the quarter spin. We just saw a few moments ago for the 333. Michael Brock rounds out the top 3 in the 421 Mountain Dew Baja Blast. Every time I start hearing Mountain Dew and it's on a motorsport broadcast, I keep on thinking Ricky Bobby, the Ballad of Talladega Nights, back in the day. But Michael Brock, he will, I wouldn't say reserve him to the fact he's going to take P3. He's going to say, it doesn't matter about the results because I am not battling those two that are in front of me for the race, for the Apex this Porsche Cup Season 28 Pro title. So it's all about, it's a bit like Alan Prost back in his early days in Formula One when he raced for Ron Dennis, then went over to Frank Williams after, well, one of the stipulations, if anyone hasn't seen the Senna documentary by Mr. Pandy, Manish Pandy and his team, that Alan Prost made sure that Williams did not sign Ayrton Senna to be his teammate at Williams, and he basically gave that opinion to every single person in the paddock. But nevertheless, 6.5 minutes to go here, and this is the battle for P4, P3 in the class. Ken Ingersoll versus Jack Stadola, and Ingersoll has done a lot of winning. I think he's probably the most winningest driver so far in this season. Although we've had 8 races, this is being week number 9. 6 minutes to go. So after this, I would say we've probably got 3 laps remaining, which will put us at around about the 35-36 lap mark. But more to the point, further battles behind. Michael Cummings there in the number 15 car. Very stealthily looking livery with a few accents, a little bit of flashes of silver here or there. Nevertheless, with 5.5 minutes to go, Paul Darling has just got to keep the hammer down, and that's exactly what the crew chief is telling Jackie in the car just behind. So again, it is just about treading on that fine line, and what is going to help you to progress forward and stop procrastinating about what you're holding in your hands. He is Brent Spiner, lovely man, who for many years, if you love your Star Trek, played Lieutenant Commander Data on Star Trek The Next Generation all those years ago, with the likes of Patrick Stewart, Jonathan Frakes, Marina Sirtis, and also Levar Burton, who played Geordie LaForge. But still, Steve, 4.5 minutes to go. The elbows are still out. Mark Miller has been on a bit of a comeback tear, and he's trying to get through, and he did. That would have been on one of the mid-pack barriers, Keegan Gearig. There's someone else closing in on their 6 very, very quickly. But Benson Ty has also made up 4 positions. But still, battles up and down the order. And I think with that quarter spin that DJ Alessandrini had, that has effectively costed him the motor race.
It's gone and changed the entire complexion. It's the same as what we've seen with Michael Cummings and Brian Zinn. They're fighting out between one another. 2 different classes getting involved into each other's brawls. Sean Tito's got the same problem with Kevin Zhao, who's all over the back of him, and he's starting to make those mistakes. You saw him bouncing up and down over the curbs, starting to lose a little bit of time out there, and really starting to change his focus from looking out at front to looking at back, and now starting to feel that pressure. And it might actually land up switching them around yet again. We might see Cummings make a mistake, or Sean throwing himself further back, because that's just going to help out Kenneth, who is lurking in the background. He's waiting for an opportunity. So we've seen Tony Wallace a little bit earlier go and lose a little bit of that rear end and find himself pointing in the wrong direction on the final corner. Just takes one split second that you're not focused, that you're not concentrating, and unfortunately it can be the race completely gone, same as DJ had a little bit earlier. So for Paul Darling, he needs to keep locked in, looking forward, and keep the drive. Otherwise he's going to find himself falling way down in the pack and with a problem of note.
So the ticker is counting down all the way towards 0 as we went green 42.5 minutes ago. So 2.5 minutes left on the counter. Tony Wallace has had another moment in the number 78 Dr. Pepper car. So the car has been a little bit in the mire, and Wallace actually hit the escape button, did the return to garage. But Paul Darling continuing to lead the way. It is going to be very, very close. On the wire, 2 minutes and 10 seconds. Right, that is 2 laps to go. 3.6 miles, and that is just shy of 5.8 kilometers of total racing left here for Apex, this Porsche Cup Season 28, live here on Race and Nexus, as we are on the St. Petersburg Grand Prix layout. Sandrini absolutely hemorrhaging time in comparison with the drivers in front. So yeah, I think at the end of the day it has been the case that DJ Alessandrini's slip up has cost him unfortunately the win. But what you've got to think of is Michael Brock is not looking at whether he is going to get the win. He is looking at the points situation, because he could wrap this up very, very early indeed. Maybe as early as Monza in a fortnight's time for week number 11. Ken Ingersoll holding on to P3 in the division of the Mid-Pack Larrys. And he has got Jack Stadola breathing all down his neck as we're on to the white flag laps. So Paul Darling making his way through turn 1 as we speak. This has been a case of the laps have just flown by. We're going to be completing lap 37 at the end of this one. But this man here has done everything right. He has kept his nose clean, kept his powder dry. And when others lost their head, like we saw with DJ Alessandrini just after the pit stop phase, Paul Darling was there like a coiled spring. It was like Shere Khan out of the Jungle Book waiting for Mowgli, and managed to get his prey. But Alessandrini, a little stumble, very uncharacteristic when he's made previous appearances. But this is where we are seeing that Paul Darling is definitely shining. Through turn 11, just a handful of corners to go, and we are going to see a new race winner join the Roll of Honour here for Season 28 in the Going Pros. Michael Brock has been dominant, but it was one man that took the fight to the streets of St. Peter's out of the final corner. It is Paul Darling, the number 20 that started from the outside of the front row, takes the checkered flag after 37 laps of racing. DJ Alessandrini finishes in second despite a little bit of a half spin, and Michael Brock with another podium finish, a P3 for the 421 Mountain Dew Baja Blast Porsche. It is going to be Colin Winslow that's going to cross the line in fourth, but more to the point, Derek Tyndall is fifth. There is Michael Cummings, and look at this, he's got someone right on his case. That is Brian Zinn, Derek Tyndall's teammate. There's going to be a drag race coming out of the final corner. Tyndall will take fifth. Michael Cummings becomes the new winner in the Mid-Pack Larrys as he just edges out Brian Zinn to about quarter of a second across the line. Sean Teeter P2 in the Mid-Pack Larrys, finishing 8th overall. 9th, it's going to go the way of Kevin Shue, but 10th, Ken Ingersoll, the Mid-Pack Larrys leader in the point standings, rounds out the top 3, but he was being hard pressed by Jack Stadola in the Eddie Jordan livery tribute band number 406 with the Deutsche Post and Benson and Hedges emblazoned on the side of the car. Joe Mayer comes across the line to finish at P12. But, well, what can you say about a race on the streets of St. Pete? It was going to be a tough one. People would probably have said, yeah, I'm not quite happy with this car and track combination, Steve. But a pretty good success rate, despite the fact we didn't have Conor Menard, Kent Kruger, Tina Renee, and Mike Bond, followed by Matt Mosby, who got excluded on the very first lap of the race. Seems like there was a lot of clean racing out there here in Florida.
Oh, it was absolutely incredible. And we got to see what the pit stops could do to the drivers. Now, that being said, it's going to be an interesting one of everyone having a discussion in the pits of who got involved in whose fights. But let's take a look at the points, and you've got the sights on the pros.
So, Paul Darling, having led for 10 of the laps here tonight, takes the win by just under 3.7 seconds from DJ Alessandrini, making another impromptu appearance. Doesn't get a win this time, but finishes P2. And the current reigning and defending champion and going pro points leader, Michael Brock, in the 421. Does damage limitation here at St. Pete, but picking up P3. Colin Winslow was a further 7.2 seconds behind in fourth. Derek Tyndall rounds out the top five, followed by has hit higher teammate Brian Zinn. Kevin Zhu, Joe Mayer, and Mark Miller, along with Tony Wallace, round out the finishers. Spencer Vaudois, after contact through out of turn one and getting T-boned in the front bumper, retired on the opening lap, and Matt Mosby was excluded within the first 0.1 of the opening lap of this race. And it's over to Steve for the mid-pack Larrys.
Michael Cummings took the victory 2 seconds ahead of Sean Tito, who had to fight it out in a bit of a brawl out of his own class. Kenneth Ingersoll will take up third, with Jack Stradola in fourth. Keegan Gehrig will finish up in the top five. Benson Tai, after his clawback and early pit stop, finds himself in sixth position. John Munslav finds himself in seventh with Christopher Lum, Matt Bond, along with Keaton Brandy, who kept out of trouble. Paul Bailey was 3 laps down, but kept circulating. Unfortunately, a couple of retirements. Kent Kruger, Conor Menard, Mike Bond, and Tino Renee. They didn't see the start line, but they did get into the server in practice.
So, after going through the provisional results here for week 9 out of 12, there's still 3 more tracks on the calendar. We'll go with our usual housekeeping at the end of the show. But first of all, it's time to turn our attention to the Apex Sim Racing post-race interview show. I'll be talking to our going pros, and Steve will be chatting with our mid-pack Larrys that have been in the top 3. But first of all, his win streak comes to an end, but Michael Brock, Mike, firstly, good evening. A difficult race there. It wasn't an easy one to try and find manoeuvres to get past, and you seem to lack a little bit of a pace in comparison with Paul and DJ.
Yeah, you noticed. I was hoping it wasn't that obvious, but no, those guys are blazing fast. So I kind of knew that going into it, that this was going to be a race for learning.
Well, I think you'll be pleased to know that despite the fact that we always find that DJ likes to appear here, there, and everywhere on an Apex This Tuesday broadcast, he didn't get the win tonight after a little bit of a moment.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't really notice what happened because DJ was leading it for like 99% of the race. So I'll have to watch it back, see what happened. He had a bobble or something.
Yeah, he did. It was actually just after the pit stop phase because Paul ended up winning by 3.7 seconds. But nevertheless, forgetting about those two that finished in front of you, a good points haul here at St. Pete.
Yeah, it was a fun race, like a very like mind-numbing race. My mind feels like it's scrambled eggs right now. Like towards the end, it's just like, especially going through those like tight sections, like left, right, left. It's a lot to at least for me. I'm just trying not to lose concentration through the last half of the race. So I'm glad I could make it through without hitting too many walls.
Well, actually, Steve has just told me that DJ and Paul actually fell off at the same corner, but DJ, I think, lost the bigger amount of time and ended up being second best. But nevertheless, let's not focus on St. Pete because it's now past tense. We've got 3 more tracks to go. You're looking very, very good to potentially defending your title here in the Going Pros, bearing in mind season 26, it was you versus Lemke, and then it was Ding Ding. It was like the Rocky 1 and Rocky 2. It was like you were Rocky and Brian was Apollo Creed, and then we had the rematch in season 27. Things are looking really good. With the last 3 tracks we've got coming up, Imola, Monza, and Spa, they should be very much to your liking.
Imola, Monza. Yeah, actually, so Imola, I did some practice stops because I've actually never raced there before for whatever reason. I don't know why that slipped through the cracks, but so that one's pretty tricky too. There's a bunch of like curbs, like sausage curbs that at least the really fast guys hit. So yeah, that's but it's a fast flowing one, so I think that's going to be a really good one.
Well, listen, buddy, you did a great job getting it home in P3. Before we let you go, Mike, anyone you'd like to give a shout out to in particular, as always?
Yeah, my girl Jen, and everyone else, at Apex this, you guys in the booth, and special thanks for DJ and Paul for showing up. It's great seeing guys like that caliber kind of showing up and showing us how it's done. So, hopefully they show up some more.
Brilliant. Well, Mike, good to chat with you as always in the Apex Sim Racing post-race interview show. We'll see you next week for week 10 at Imola. Have a good evening.
Yeah, you too. Thanks.
Okay, big thank you there to Michael Brock. And now standing by to speak to our winner in the mid-pack Larry's. Started on pole in the race. He's joined by the number 15 of Michael Cummings. Over to you, Steve.
Michael, what a race out there. How are you feeling, especially that you had to fight your way through the pack, fight your way against the Going Pros, and land up having a brawl right down to the wire?
It was a fun race. That's a really fun track because it's just, you're on the edge every corner. So putting a full race together, it feels pretty good, aside from one little incident, which I think it was just a racing issue, but didn't cost me anything, so I'm very happy with the win.
Now, with that being said, you're not in the shot for the title of the championship, but you definitely gone and shown that you can be heading into the next couple of races. With that in mind, what's the game plan for the rest of the season? With 3 rounds left in it, you're taking the momentum of a solid victory here at the beautiful street circuit of St. Petersburg. What's the game plan for you to score as many points as possible for the mid-pack Larrys?
I think just giving myself a little bit of practice time, maybe an hour or 2 before the race, or just the week leading up to it, just getting on the track, feeling it out, because there's so many subtle things especially on St. Pete, like all the bounces, all the bumps. It can throw your lap time off a half second at just the smallest little mistake. So it's just getting out there and getting a little bit of practice in so you feel confident behind it, because the P Cup car is just not a huge confidence building car.
Fair enough, but I've got to ask, if you had to take a picture frame moment from all the fights you had in the race here tonight against Brian Zinn, going and fighting out against Sean Teeter, what would be those moments for you that you would put in a picture frame and say, there we go, that was my experience at St. Petersburg, and having to really go and fight out for the victory in some very close calls?
Yeah, I think just the first 10 laps or so where the 6 of us kind of separated from the rest of the pack, that just kind of solidified my feeling of feeling pretty good about this track. So it was fun being up there. I wasn't really sure if everybody in front of me was in my class or if they were all pros. So I didn't want to push too hard in the case that, why bring anybody back into the race when I knew I already had real good points lined up. So I think just making smart decisions was the highlight for me tonight.
Oh, absolutely. Bolt, before we let you go to enjoy the celebrations on a phenomenal win, what would you like to say to all the partners here and the Apex this, to all the competitors out on the track, the teams, and most importantly, everyone out in the virtual grandstands at Racer Nexus, watching on, cheering on, and getting to see the epic racing?
Appreciate what you guys do at Racer Nexus, at the guys at Apex this. It's been a hell of a lot of fun getting to do this consistently as my schedule allows, but it's just a great time out there, and it's a good group right now, it feels like, with a lot of camaraderie and very fair racing. So I appreciate you guys for what you do. I appreciate Apex this, and hopefully there's 3 more fun races to come.
It's going to be a good one. Well, Michael, I'm glad that you got the win, glad that you got the fight, and look forward to chatting to you next week as we go and fight it out at the beautiful circuit of Imola.
Appreciate you, boys.
Absolutely wonderful to have a chat to Michael Cummings on a epic battle. But that being said, we also get to have a chat to our second place driver that was fighting out for the lead, missed it by a narrow margin. Let's have a chat to Sean Teeter. Sean, how are you feeling after that race? An incredible battle out on circuit, a phenomenal start, and you had to fight out against some of, well, the best drivers out there, and you had to fight out amongst the pros as well, just to battle for the lead.
Yeah, you said it. It was a tough one. I did have a really good start. I felt good at the beginning. I stayed pretty consistent. I had 0x, which is always a good night, so that felt pretty good.
Now, take us through the strategy planning of when to get the car in the pits and how to get the car in the pits. It seems like it was a mixed bag from all the drivers, some taking a earlier pit stop and others, well, trying to go the extra mile. What was your game plan to ensure you can get in and out the pits quick enough and to still stay in the fight for the lead?
Oh, you went right for the sore spot. Yeah, I mean, it was a big range of people pitting. I pitted. I probably could have lasted one more lap before pitting. I just, I had clean air, so I was just going until, I didn't want to have any sort of cutout. So I played a little bit safe, and that cost me, as you saw, because then I got tied up behind Michael for a lap. Then Zen got between us. So it was good racing.
Well, I actually wanted to touch on that. You had the incredible fight. It was 6 in a fight at the start, and you were moving, shaking, and charging up places. You had Tony Wallace, who was trying to get around you as well. How was that in pack racing, close quarters? You've not much room to go and get passes done, but still having to find that little bit of an edge over the competition.
Yeah, I mean, that was interesting because with Tony, I think I was holding him up at the beginning, and he kind of wrecked, and then he caught back up on me. So when he caught back on me, I let him go, but then he started to struggle. I think all of us struggled once there was somebody in our mirrors, and it took a lot to get by him again. So I won't let him go next time, and but it was fun battling against him.
Oh, and then I've got to ask this one because we saw it out on the stream. Brian Zinn rocketing in between you and Michael right towards the end. I'm sure there was a few words said under the crash helmet that we can't say, but that moment, did you feel that changed the entire race? That was the moment, unfortunately, splitting the two of you apart?
Absolutely. I thought I had Michael. I was putting a lot of pressure on him. He was hitting walls. I felt like I had a good run on him. I was not ready for that to come in. Yeah, if I'd been mic'd up at that point, he would have heard some stuff for sure.
But still a good haul of points. Second in the championship, a second place here today, and ahead of Kenneth and Keegan. With that being said, anything you would like to say to all the drivers, to all the teams, to everyone here at Apex This, and to everyone out on the Racer Nexus virtual grandstands?
Well, first off, you guys are missing out because the Porsche Cup Car is so much fun. And as always, thank you to Spencer for hosting our practice nights on Monday. Got a lot of practice in last night with Mark Miller and Kenton Boundy, and that helped a lot. So thank you, Spencer.
Absolutely wonderful. And there we go. Great to have it. And Sean, we look forward to having a chat to you next week at Imola as you continue the fight for the championship, closing the distance to Kenneth Ingersoll on that top step.
Yeah, race by race. Thanks.
race by race and just a little trip every which way possible. But Alex, it's been an incredible evening. And so far, the drivers getting excited towards the end as we're going back to familiar circuits for some and others, a new experience.
Yeah, I think in the words of the late, great Michael Jackson, you want to get something started? Well, it's going to start next week at Imola at the Autodromo Enzo Edino Ferrari. Coming up on the schedule for the calendar, we go to, currently, for those wondering, there's some GT3 action, so you might be able to catch the tail end of Freedom Motorsport Alliance. Week 8 GT3, currently racing at the Circuit de la Sarthe at Le Mans. High Point Racing IMSA comes back into play on later on this week on Thursday at Silverstone for week 4 of season 6. We'll also have American Sim Racing League Indy next. Freedom Motorsport Alliance WEC will be going to Indianapolis Motor Speedway Road Course. Special stage Pro Trucks will be going to Lucas Oil and Lennon Canaan RX this coming week on the Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern. Breaking Bad Pushing Limits due to hit your screens this coming Saturday at 11 p.m. Eastern at the Autodromo Internacional do Algarve in Portimao for Season 3. Week 4 Apex this Mazda Cup will also be coming back to St. Pete. High Point Racing GT World Challenge is on a week's hiatus this coming Sunday, but we'll also have Freedom Motorsport Alliance Gen 4, and they'll be heading to Iowa. What's more, 3 more rounds in the calendar to go for season 28 of Apex this Porsche Cup Tuesdays, Imola, Monza, and Spa. But to cap things off, it was a Darling that took the victory in going pro and another Michael that took a win, but this time it was in the mid-pack Larrys with Paul Darling and Michael Cummings, your race winners for week 9. But just 7 days, we take a trip back across the pond, over the Atlantic, and head to one fantastic circuit. Imola provides spectacular, close quarter battling, elevation changes, tight technical sections with fast sweeping chicanes. It is truly one not to be missed. Who will potentially strike that killer queen blow next week at Imola in terms of the championship standings? Well, you're going to have to join myself, Alex Goldschmidt, and Steve Koenig here on Racer Nexus to find out. A big thank you to everyone that has been watching along on the Racer Nexus broadcast network. This stream has been powered by Racer Nexus, by TrackCams for Gourmets, TrackCams22.com, Apex this, and also our good friends at Apex Sim Racing. And if you haven't already noticed in the description, if you want to get a 5% discount on checkout with Apex Sim Racing, use the coupon code Apex this before you pay those dollars or those pounds or those rand, whatever country you're from, to get the latest equipment available. Well, until next time, that is it from myself and Steve. We look forward to seeing you at the home of Ferrari at Imola. Good night and enjoy the rest of your week. We'll see you next time.